Donald Trump welcomed the new Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to the Oval Office, and it did not go well for Donald Trump. We, at one point, Trump's brain seemed to reboot when the Canadian Prime Minister just said no right to his face about this silly concept about Canada as the 51st state and so many other things. This is really fascinating to watch. And even though Trump exudes confidence, the competence gap is so clear when you listen to Mark Carney speak and the look on Trump's face. He knows that he's being told no, and he doesn't like it. Take a listen to this.
They get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our...
And as you can see, Trump slouched over as he is told by Mark Carney, you're not going to bully me. You're not going to do it. And Trump at this point is just trying to save face. He looks and sounds like such a small little man and truly an embarrassment. Now, in another Kafkaesque moment, Donald Trump brags that he was probably the greatest thing that happened to Mark Carney, missing the point that the reason Canadians rejected a Trump mini, Pierre Poilievre, was that they realized, wait a second, Trump has reminded us the last thing we want is anything like Trump in Canada. Totally missing for Trump. Listen to this.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great honor to have Prime Minister Mark Carney with us. As you know, just a few days ago, he won a very big election in Canada. And I think I was probably the greatest thing that happened to him, but I can't take full credit. His party was losing by a lot, and he ended up winning. So I really want to congratulate him. Was one of
Trump says it almost like, thanks to my endorsement, Mark Carney won. But it really should be one of Trump's greatest shames that he helped Mark Carney win, because he helped Mark Carney win by demonstrating that they don't want anything like Trump in Canada. They said, wait a second, let's stick with the Liberal Party. And so Trump, as always, has to frame himself as powerful and take credit for everything. But because Trump is so disliked in Canada, you could argue Mark Carney was able to become prime minister. Now watch, if you're watching today, watch Mark Carney's face during this one. It almost looks like he has to reboot his brain after Trump goes, we don't do a lot of business with Canada. We just, and of course, yes, we do. And Mark Carney's face looks like he had to Control-Alt-Delete there.
During the campaign, Prime Minister Carney talked about the American betrayal. How do you react if Canada decided not to shop in the American store as much as before and decided to partner with other countries?
Well, we don't do much business with Canada from our standpoint. They do a lot of business with us.
And Carney goes, oh, we've got to replay that. Carney is like, what is this guy talking about?
They do a lot of business with us. We're at like 4%. And usually those things don't last very long. We have great things, great product. The kind of product we sell, nobody else can sell, including military. Look, we make the best military equipment in the world. And Canada buys our military equipment, which we appreciate. But we make the best military equipment in the world by far. The missiles, the submarines, everything. Everything we have is really top notch. I rebuilt our military during our last term.
The look on Carney's face during this confused moment is really something else. And then in another moment that defies math, economics, and logic, Trump again expresses his confusion on trade, saying by not trading, we are saving money. Of course, this is not how trade works.
And by not trading, we're losing nothing. So we're saving $1 trillion. It's a lot. But they want to negotiate and they want to have a meeting, and we'll We'll be meeting with them at the right time.
It is once again stunning that Trump sees trade as we were just sending China $1 trillion. We just sent them $1 trillion. That we're just flushing $1 trillion down the toilet. What Trump seems not to understand, which is terrifying because he's the president, is that we would send China $1 trillion and China would send us $1 trillion worth of stuff at cheaper prices than we could manufacture it here in the United States. Now, I completely respect people who say, David, I don't care about lower prices. I want American made. I want the national security of a domestic supply chain. I want to employ domestic workers and pay them more than what Chinese workers get paid. Great. Everything will cost more. We can choose to do that. That's a totally respectable position. But this idea that trade means we would just send money to China. No, we send money to China and get an equivalent value in products back, but Trump doesn't get it. At another point, Trump says USMCA is great for all countries. This is Trump's trade deal, which was basically just NAFTA with a new name. And Carney says right to his face, oh, some of these things are going to have to change. And Trump doesn't like it.
The USMCA is great for all countries. It's good for all countries. We do have a negotiation coming up over the next year or so to adjust it or terminate it.
Mr. President,
I'll say a word on USMCA, if I may, Mr. President. It is a basis for a broader negotiation. Some things about it are going to have to change. And part of the way you've conducted these tariffs has taken advantage of existing aspects of USMCA.
And Trump just sits there and goes, well, I'm not too sure about that. All right. Finally, a reporter asks Trump, what is the primary concession you want from Canada? And Trump says, I want them to be my friend. And then, of course, that is not really a concession.
Yeah, please.
What's the top concession you want out of Canada? The top concession you want out of Canada?
Concession?
Yes.
Friendship.
But that's not a concession.
No, we're going to be friends with Canada.
Oh my goodness. It's like he's a pre-programmed character in a video game or something like that. But listen, good for Mark Carney. And hilariously, Mark Carney weighed in on what was going through his head during this meeting. And it's very funny. I want to talk about that next. Your mom wants you to call her, and this Mother's Day, give her a call. But you can also consider giving her an Aura digital picture frame. Aura Frames was named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter. I've gifted these to so many folks, including my mom, no matter where I am. If we're traveling, if my daughter does something absolutely brilliant on the playground, which happens all the time, I can take a picture or a video and upload it directly into my mom's Aura frame or whoever's. I can also share access. I shared it with my brother so he can upload pictures directly as well. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. My audience can save for a limited time on the perfect gift by going to auraframes.com and getting $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. Go to auraframes.com, use the code PACMAN. The link is in the description.